One of the next bigger jobs that I've got to do on the Golf is the drive shafts. So I've recently just obviously finished the roof liner, as you know. I've also just put in a new Apple CarPlay stereo, which I'm really liking. It looks super clean, and there it is. So the reason I went for this one is because it looks super OEM. Let me just take the phone out of the way. It looks super OEM. It basically looks exactly the same as the slightly newer one, which was, I believe, in the Mark 6. But yeah, everything's super nice. Let me just turn it on for you and I'll just show you. There we go. So, I don't know. I'm still working out how to use half of this stuff, but yeah, so super nice. Obviously it connects to my phone eventually. There we go. And then you got Apple CarPlay, which is sweet. But yeah, it kind of, you know, just vamps up the look of this car, makes it look super fresh and super clean, and also newer. And you know, it's good because I can have, you know, Waze maps on here, and I've obviously got music and everything as well. So yeah, super happy with this one. It wasn't crazy expensive, something like £80. So yeah, really happy with that. One of the other small things that I've done as well, little modification, is I've put the indicators as DRLs, which I think looks super clean. I've seen a few people around here with it, and I just thought, you know, I'm gonna have to do it. So yeah, it's just all of these little pieces that are adding up together to make this really the car that I want it to be. So as you've already guessed by the title of this video, I've actually got some new drive shafts, which I've just bought here. I've got the left and the right, so I need to get those fixed because it's been an issue that has been ongoing. Obviously every single time I'm turning all the way left and all the way right, there's just a constant knocking sound, and I've tried to record it but you can't hear it on the video, so you're just going to have to trust me on that, and we're going to have to replace them. So I believe I've got everything here that I need. Obviously we've got the drive shafts, I've got a bit of WD-40, I've got a jack, I've got the axle stands, which I need to lift the car up because I'm going to do both sides, as you can tell, because I've got both drive shafts. I've got a torque wrench, I've got the breaker bar to take the wheel nuts off, and then I've just got some tools over there just to, you know, help me get the drive shaft out. But I believe that's pretty much everything that we're going to need to be able to complete this job. Before we get started on anything, the first thing I want to do is make sure that these drive shafts are correct, because the last thing I want to do is take all the wheel off, take the drive shaft bolt out, and then these ones don't actually fit. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So this one looks absolutely fine. I believe that this is exactly the same as the one that's in there. Obviously this is not OEM, but this is from a company called J&R CV Joints. Not sponsored or anything, just, you know, these look pretty solid, and yeah, they should be fine. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the OEM bolt, because I don't think this one, I don't know, I mean maybe this one will be okay, but I don't want this one to be like chocolate, because if it is, it's not going to be any good. The first thing we need to do is get the car on axle stands, take both the wheels off, and then we can start attacking the drive shaft bolt and taking the drive shafts out. So with the wheels off, the next thing we need to do is get the drive shaft bolt out, and then supposedly what we can do is we can actually just get inside of there, disconnect, take all of the bolts out of the actual transmission, and then what we can do is actually just turn the wheels, and then this should pretty much just come straight out. You know, it's always nice thinking, but let's see how this goes. All I'm doing here is putting a few of the wheel bolts in, because when you try to undo the drive shaft bolt, if you don't have someone pushing on the brake or put a screwdriver into the disc, then everything will spin and you won't get the bolt undone. So with both of the bolts nicely loosened, the next thing I'm going to do is actually take out the arch liner in here, because it's going to be quite difficult to get to the drive shaft right at the back there without taking this out. So yeah, that's the next thing. We just take out all of these little screws all the way around and remove that out of the way. And there we go, that's one side off, and just like magic, the other side is off. I've also taken off the under tray just to make it easier to access the drive shaft inside of there. So hopefully, let's just get a flash on. There we go. So hopefully we can get to those bolts nice and easily. Well, we can get to those bolts nice and easily on that side, and then on this side, relatively easy also. We can get under there. We've got plenty of space to, you know, replace them. So let's get to it. So I stopped recording last night because it got super dark and it was just really difficult for you to actually see anything. The reason that I've been taking so long to do this is because I snapped a bolt inside of the drive shaft, the one that connects to the transmission. So I ended up spending hours trying to just get that out without trying to drill it. I just tried to, literally clean off. Let me see if we can go here. There we go. Clean off. So it's taken me a while, but I basically went to VW and I bought a new bolt. Realistically, I probably should have bought 12 new bolts, but I thought, you know, I'm gonna try and get away with it. This is the thing with cars. It takes theoretically an hour to do a job, but then, you know, you always run into things that, you know, you can't control and things take a lot longer. So it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. You've just got to get through it, and that's the whole point of, you know, learning through these things, is you've got to just push through these things, learn and do what you can do. So it's actually been a few weeks since I changed the drive shafts. Basically what happened is I pretty much stopped recording because it got really dark and I just wanted to get it done. I got as much as I could, but basically what I've done is I must have damaged one of the wheel bearings. So the left hand side wheel bearing is making a noise, and I actually got a replacement drive shaft because I thought maybe the drive shaft had something wrong with it, because the driver's side is absolutely fine. So I've then figured out obviously it wasn't that, and the wheel bearing is gone. So what I've done is I've gone and picked up two wheel bearings. I'm actually just going to replace both sides. So I thought what I could do is I could change both wheel bearings and obviously show you the drive shafts and everything else again, just so you could see it properly. I want to just apologise for waiting on this video, because what I've had to do is I've had to order these wheel hubs, wheel bearings, and then the bolts that actually came with the wheel bearings, they are M11, and I cannot find an M11 multi-spline piece anywhere. So what I've had to do is I've actually had to buy M12 bolts from Bilstein, so I can actually, you know, put the new wheel bearings in. And then I went on holiday for a week, so I've just not been able to get this video sorted and finished. So as I've said previously in this video, just putting a couple of the wheel bolts back in, and then as you can see in this one, I'm putting a screwdriver in the caliper into the disc to be able to undo the drive shaft bolt. So once you've undone the drive shaft bolt, you can then move on to the 6 bolts holding the drive shaft into the transmission. So all you have to do is, with the 2 wheel bolts that you put into the disc, you can then use those to turn the drive shaft, and then obviously you can access each one of the 6 bolts that hold the drive shaft into the transmission. So once you've taken all of the 6 bolts out of the drive shaft, which connects to the transmission, you've obviously then just got to take out the spline bolt, which is just here. I've just taken out just there, and then there's all the 6 bolts with the little retaining clips as well. Once you've done that, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the wheel so it's facing, so it's like facing to the right, so I can get the drive shaft out from this way here. So I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I just used a breaker bar and I knocked the drive shaft out from the wheel hub, and then as you can see here, I'm just wiggling the drive shaft out from the transmission. So as you can see, this is actually how drive shafts go bad, and this is actually the new one. All of the grease is just coming out. Hopefully it's not a bad one, but as you know, this is literally the replacement that I got, but we'll have to see. I'll put it back in, and then I've got a 2-year warranty on it. So there's the other side. That seems okay. So, but yeah, we'll see. If I need to put a new one in, I'll put a new one in. So to gain access to the wheel hub, obviously we need to remove the caliper and we need to remove the disc. You've seen me do all of this when I upgraded the discs and put the new discs on. And, you know, all I'm doing here is just putting the caliper onto the caliper hanger and making sure, you know, that that doesn't just sit there and hang about on the brake lines. Then you just got to remove the disc. Once you've got the disc out of the way, you can see the wheel bearing. So luckily I got all 4 bolts out and they came out really nicely. None of them sort of cross-threaded or anything. As you can see there, the bolt holes right there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to clean up behind here, let's just turn a flush on for you. There we go. So yeah, just behind here, I'm just gonna have a little bit of a clean up and just get a little wire brush and just brush around it. Make sure all of the joining areas are nice and clean. And then we're pretty much ready to put the new one back on. So the way my friend just told me to actually get that out, because I was really struggling to get out, as you can see in the previous clips, is basically put 2 of these bolts back in the back of the hub, and then actually just hit these with a hammer, because obviously I've got all of the new ones here, so I'm not going to be putting these ones back in. So just screw them in a bit and then just hit these with a hammer and it just knocks it straight out. It actually came out really easy that way. And yeah, I'm super happy that he actually just told me to do that. So let's get this cleaned up and we'll get the new one back in. And there we have it, the new wheel bearing is on. All we need to do now is get around the back here and tighten up all 4 of these bolts, and they have to go to 52 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. So let's get that done. And we have 56, 42 and 28, so I'm going to go roughly 56 just because it makes sense, and all we've got to do is put a 0 onto 56. So I believe that is 56 Newton meters. Got those sorted, put that in, and let's tighten this up. I'm going to do this in like a star, so I'm going to do top right, bottom left, top left, bottom right. I'm going to do it like that just because it makes sense, and that's, you know, how you do studs. So I'm just going to do it like that because it makes sense to me. So I've actually decided I'm going to put the old drive shaft back into the left hand side, because as you've seen in the previous clips, I've put in a new wheel bearing onto the left hand side, and I need to do the right hand side still. But the reason I haven't done that is because the wheel bearing wasn't actually the issue. I can't figure out what the issue is. I don't know whether there's a bearing gone inside of the transmission or whether it's just, you know, this drive shaft. So what I'm going to do is just put the old drive shaft back in, and then I'm going to take it for a drive and obviously see, you know, whether the droning stops. I cannot figure out what it is. It's it's been bugging me for weeks now, and that's basically why this video hasn't been finished. It's because I haven't finished the job. So I've gone and taken the drive shaft out of the transmission. There's the new drive shaft and here's the old drive shaft. I'm actually going to put the old drive shaft back in, so let's get to putting that back in. So after some faffing around, I finally got the drive shaft back in. The old one was actually harder to get in than the new one, but as you can see, all I'm doing here is just using the bolt to pull the drive shaft back through the wheel hub, and then all you've got to do is put the 6 bolts back into the drive shaft, which connects to the transmission. This is a bit of a faff, it takes a little while, but all you've got to do is get that 1 bolt in, and then the rest of them go in super smooth. Again, just to turn the drive shaft, all you need to do is use the wheel bolts, and then you'll be able to access all 6 of the bolts. Alright, so that's all of the screws in after a nice struggle just to get the first one in. The first one you really have to align. I'd say to get this, like, it doesn't really matter which one, but obviously this one here makes it way easier to just like get it snug in, get that one really snug, and then you can get the rest of them in. So the next thing we need to do is just torque down all of these. I'm going to put them to 60 Newton meters, and then basically what I do, because I'm on my own, I get a screwdriver, a long screwdriver, and I put it inside the caliper like that, and then when you torque these down, the whole hub won't spin. So all we've got to do now is tighten up the spline bolt to 210 newton meters of torque, and then do 180 degrees. And there we have it, arch lining back in, wheel back on, all together. All we need to do now is just we need to do the 180 degrees on the drive shaft bolt. Let's give that a go. Yeah, there's no way that I'm getting that any tighter. That is, I'm going to put my back out if I do that any tighter. So yeah, the next thing to do is literally just take it for a drive and see if the noise has gone. If it has gone, sweet. If it hasn't, then the search continues. Alright, so this is the first drive. Let's see if it actually does it. Yeah, it's still doing it. So I don't know if you can actually hear it, but right there is where it's like droning. It's like 1.7 to 1.9k revs. Maybe it's a bearing gone in the transmission. It's definitely something to do with the drive shaft because it's specific to RPM. It seems like it's less, the noise is less, but again, until I start doing sort of, you know, getting up into the higher gears and going into that 1.7 to 1.9k rev range, you can't really tell, but it's definitely still there. So it's not the drive shaft, it's not the wheel bearing. It's got to be something inside the gearbox, which is really strange because when I put the new drive shaft in, prior to that it wasn't actually there. So I don't know what it can be. I'm just gonna have to either wait for it to get slightly worse, or I'm gonna have to look into the gearbox and start looking around those areas. It's just so hard to like test it without actually driving. You know, I can't just sort of put it on axle stands and get it revving to the 1.7 to 1.9k rev range, because it doesn't make the sound unless it's under load. So it's really quite difficult to figure out this noise, but it's frustrating because like I said, it wasn't there prior to me changing the first drive shaft. Yeah, it's definitely still there. I haven't got a clue what it is now. Yeah, like I say, the search continues. So I've done everything that I can think of doing. I've obviously done the wheel bearing, I've done the drive shaft, I've pulled everything apart, and I've, you know, done it several times now. There's not much else I can think of, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comment section below what you did enjoy. This search continues, and I'll see if I can figure it out in another video. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you in the next one.